My name is Craig and I was married for 7 years. To be candid, the last 2 years felt more like sharing a living space with a roommate than being in a marriage. The passion we once had faded long before, yet I remained hopeful for a resurgence of that spark. Ultimately, it was a single text message from Las Vegas that marked the end of our relationship. Let me recount how it all unfolded. I met Cindy during my late 20s at a local networking event. Initially, I had low expectations. We conversed briefly, exchanged business cards, and I thought that would be the end of our interaction. However, a few days later she reached out and we began texting and calling each other. Before long, our lunches during work breaks turned into weekend chats and evening meetups. We genuinely enjoyed each other's company, and it didn't take long for feelings to blossom. When we began dating, we were decisive, and within a relatively short period we were married. The early years of our marriage were fulfilling. We shared laughter, supported one another, and planned for our future as partners. While we were not wealthy, we lived a stable life, building a foundation together. However, one dream eluded us: starting a family. We tried repeatedly to conceive, but each unsuccessful attempt chipped away at our emotional well-being in ways we didn't openly discuss. Rather than leaning on each other for support, we both began to retreat into our work. Cindy took on additional projects, and I accepted more responsibilities. Though we were still sharing the same home, our emotional connection began to drift apart. Gradually, it felt as though we were merely roommates, albeit with wedding rings. The emotional intimacy that once came so effortlessly began to diminish, little by little, year after year. By the time we reached the 7-year mark in our marriage, the transformation was undeniable. Cindy felt like a stranger in our shared home. I noticed her work hours increasingly stretched, and her frequent late nights and out-of-town trips became the norm. She attributed her absences to conferences, networking events, and team retreats. Although I wanted to trust her, I began to question the veracity of her claims, knowing how rare and costly such trips could be in the corporate world. In an attempt to rekindle our connection, I decided to take on more financial responsibilities, hoping that alleviating her stress would allow her to focus more on us. Initially, there seemed to be a shift. She began coming home earlier, and I felt a flicker of hope. However, that optimism was short-lived as her old patterns resumed. Late nights and business trips returned, and when I tried to discuss our relationship, she became defensive. One evening I suggested we talk about how we might reconnect. Her response was sharp. "What is your problem? How else do you want us to reconnect?" I was left speechless, and from that moment, our interactions devolved into transactional exchanges. Conversations turned logistical, and any attempt to address our emotional distance was quickly dismissed. I proposed a weekly date night, to which she replied she was too busy, and when I suggested therapy, she rolled her eyes. My attempts to engage with her on weekends were met with excuses. She often claimed fatigue or a lack of interest, which stung deeply. As time went on, Cindy began retreating to the guest room after minor disagreements. I tried to be understanding initially, but suspicion grew that she might be involved with someone else. I had no concrete evidence, but my instincts told me that a woman doesn't simply shut down all physical and emotional ties without seeking that connection elsewhere. Then, one Tuesday evening, Cindy announced that her company was organizing a week-long team-building retreat in Las Vegas. I was taken aback. A whole week in Vegas seemed excessive for a corporate event. When I inquired further, her demeanor shifted dramatically. She reacted defensively, accusing me of ruining everything. I remained calm, explaining that as her husband, it was reasonable for me to seek clarity about her plans. Instead, she escalated the confrontation, culminating in a chilling statement. "I'm still in this marriage because I choose to be. But you're pushing me. You keep on like this, and I'll end it and take everything from you." She left for the retreat that Saturday, and while I was initially relieved by the quiet in the house, I didn't take her threats seriously. I figured it was just her way of venting frustration. The following Thursday evening, as I relaxed on the couch after work, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Cindy that made my heart drop. A photo of her smiling alongside a man I didn't recognize, standing in front of what appeared to be a courthouse with a caption, "Just married my coworker. You're pathetic for not calling me during this retreat." In that moment, I was flooded with a mix of betrayal, confusion, and disgust. I replied simply with "cool," realizing I was ready to end this chapter. I took a screenshot of the message for evidence and reached out to my old college friend, Ryan, who was a family lawyer. After reviewing her message, he advised me to hold off on any drastic actions until we spoke further. By midnight, I had resolved to stop waiting for Cindy to come to her senses. The first step I took was to freeze our joint bank accounts, ensuring she couldn't access any funds. I also suspended our shared credit cards. If she wanted to engage in games, it would be on her own terms. I arranged for a locksmith to change the locks on our house the following morning. When Friday arrived, Cindy returned home, unaware that I had already changed the locks. Shortly after her arrival, I received a call from the local police, who informed me that she was outside and unable to enter. When I arrived, I explained calmly that I was the sole owner of the house and that she had voluntarily left for a week. I felt it was necessary to protect myself, given the circumstances. The officers were understanding and informed her that the matter would need to be resolved in court. Cindy erupted in anger, claiming that her marriage to her coworker was a joke and that they were drunk at the time. I didn't engage in an argument, I simply stated, "My lawyer will be in touch. Please ask her to leave." Deep down, part of me wanted to believe her, but the larger part of me was exhausted by the guessing games, emotional manipulation, and cold silences. A week later, I met with my lawyer to file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and potential infidelity. I didn't need hard evidence. Her actions and words were sufficient. I requested a full separation of assets, and to my surprise, Cindy quickly hired her own attorney. However, what she didn't anticipate was that we were serious about our claims. My lawyer contacted the Clark County Recorder's Office and confirmed that Cindy's marriage to her coworker, Jared, was legally binding. Compounding the situation, Jared was already married, which added the serious implication of bigamy to the mix. My lawyer promptly reported the incident to the district attorney, sparking a criminal investigation. As we proceeded through family court, I was granted temporary financial protection, meaning Cindy could not deplete our accounts during the divorce process. I retained full use of the house, and the judge ordered a freeze on all joint assets. This provided me with the necessary breathing room. In criminal court, Cindy faced charges of bigamy. She attempted to argue that the marriage was a joke and that she had been unaware of what she was signing. However, the prosecution presented signed legal documents and hotel receipts, which undermined her defense. After a lengthy legal process, the court condemned her actions. Although the judge opted against jail time, Cindy was sentenced to probation, a substantial fine, and community service. The fallout from her conviction was swift. Her employer terminated her employment, unwilling to associate with a convicted felon. In contrast, my divorce proceedings concluded favorably. I was granted a full divorce without alimony or financial obligations, the court recognizing her actions as a betrayal. I retained ownership of the house and my savings remained protected, allowing me to walk away unscathed. In retrospect, Cindy's impulsive decision in Las Vegas inadvertently provided me with the opportunity to reclaim my autonomy. That moment of recklessness opened the door for decisive legal action, enabling me to safeguard my assets and exit the marriage without enduring protracted legal battles. I often reflect on her thought process during that time but have ultimately found peace in knowing I seized my chance for freedom.